Dear Dhamma friends, today is the 8th day in our retreat, and this hour is for the 8th talk in the series. So may everyone get settled down and give the consent with 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Punaca parang auso bhikkhu paramena satine pakkena samannagato chira katampi chira bhasitampi sarita anusaritati ti. Dear Dhamma friends, we have taken this particular sutta, namely the Sangiti Sutta, and its area where discuss groups of pens, and under that only this particular area that we have selected for this retreat you can come across. It is talking about things that give protection. So therefore, when and where someone is going to take seriously on this meditation or spiritual journey, not only one that think about earning something, and meanwhile he or she must be attentive towards the protection of the what is that earned. So therefore, earning as well as protection has to go in hand. Otherwise, you may be very skillful in earning something, but if you do not know the techniques or tactics in how to protect, it will be very exhausting, never accumulating. So that is what happened usually in the early part of our spiritual life. We gain, we learn, we experience here and there some experiences, but we don't know the relationship and we do not know how to relate it to the other corpus, other body, and then they are scattered, and after a long time only you will understand how to fix them into the jigsaw puzzle, and then the protection, interrelation and accumulation going to take place. So therefore, beginner usually think about how to earn spiritual experiences. Therefore, often their tendency is towards the concentration rather than the mindfulness, because the concentration itself is very thrilling, and therefore they will be very happy to report and experience the concentration part. But how that concentration to maintain, how to go into and come out as and when one wish is a separate issue. So therefore, when and where the mindfulness and the concentration come into integration and give the protection on whatever you have earned, is also a very important aspect in the continuity of your spiritual journey. So that is why Venerable Sariputta here explained these 10 points in order to give some protection. So far we have discussed 8 aspects, and today we are going to take the 9th one, that in generally it is about the mindfulness. That is our main theme in the retreat as far as our basic instructions are concerned. And here the mindfulness is being introduced. He is mindful and with great capacity. That is not the beginning of the mindfulness. This is the way mindfulness gained the ground and becomes steadfast, for clearly recalling things done as well as said long ago. When and where the mindfulness itself is gaining the ground and become steadfast and with the great capacity, not only it is taking care about the here and now under your very nose, but gives some kind of orientation and relationship with respect to what you have done in the past and what you have said long ago. Therefore, it is helping in informal way towards your memory. So this is at the beginning, the relationship is not very clear, not very obvious, or we can say as far as the mindfulness is not consistent, not steadfast, this relationship is not much clear. But when and where the mindfulness becomes skillful, continuous, steadfast, it has its own capacity to remember what we have done long ago and what you have said long ago. So this is the part usually highlighted in the schools and in the educational fields. When and where someone becomes mindful, their memory capacity increases, and therefore maybe you are born with endowment and the capacities, but when and where you introduce mindfulness on top of that, remembrance or memory capacity is increasing, but one has to keep it in the mind. This is not in the early part of your career, and towards the end only you get, and that is the part we call the mindfulness is with its steadfastness, continuity, momentum, acceleration, or with the great capacity. So when that going to happen, easily you can see the mindfulness is going to work in hand with the wisdom as well as the concentration. So this is how the mindfulness is going to gain this kind of additional qualities when and where it is working with the concentration as well as the wisdom. This feature or this quality of the mindfulness this directly expressed by the Buddha as well as Venerable Sariputta is recommending us to recite it again and again collectively and consider this as one of the crux of the teaching of the Buddha. And in that outset, when you are looking at the in your first glance, relationship is not much clear, but when you keep on only, you will come to know that what the Buddha meant. Let us discuss how the commentators going to define the mindfulness. That is the traditional way, when and where they are defining mental factor or cetasika, they express through 4 categories: its characteristic and its function, its manifestation, and its proximate factor. The mindfulness, as far as the characteristics are concerned, mindfulness is recognized as not wobbling, not superficial, but penetrating. In Pali it is called apilapana lakkana. Pilapana means just wobbling, just floating, never penetrating. This is the opposite of mindfulness. Whenever the mind is not mindful, whenever the mind is not diligent, whenever you are not aware, then the mind is jumping from tip of the iceberg to tip of the iceberg. It never penetrates into, it never understands the totality, it just jumps from surface to surface. Exemplified by throwing a cork into a body of water, it is taken away by the waves and the wind currents and never go penetrate, it just wobbling, just floating on the surface. And that is the unmindful mind. Instead, when and where you try to focus the mindfulness or the awareness or the diligence, what you do is don't let the mind slip off into different objects, instead apply the same thing, apply the noting mind again and again on the same object. Through that you get a better chances to, instead of superficial wobbling, penetrate into the same object. That is called apilapana lakkana and not superficiality. So superficiality make the picture very dramatic, jumping from one to the other, different shapes, different objects, different manners. So therefore mind is very enthusiastic. When and where mindfulness is to take roots, take grounds, it is applied again and again on the same object. Even though technically it is penetrating, the mind loses its interest as well as the enthusiasm. So therefore its ability to do it, one has to have a special energy, special preparedness, special theoretical understanding. Otherwise naturally mind is not motivated to apply on the same object again and again. That natural unruly mind, the motivation of the unruly mind is jumping from one to the other. That is what we call sensuous pleasure, or varietal entertainment, or dramatic nature. This is what we do. When and where the mindfulness come into play, we try to keep again and again on the same object, then penetration is its characteristic. And then when and where mindfulness gain the ground, it is establishing its power, and then it perform and it show its functions, that is to say keeping the object face to face with. Otherwise objects are changing, you can't remember which is the one and what is the next. But when and where mindfulness is setting in, you know the object, and keeping the object face to face with is the first function of the mindfulness. So when and where the observed meditator comes to know this is my primary object, earlier I can keep it only for a split second or 1 or 2 cycles, and now my time with the primary object is increasing. For example, if you take the in-breath and out-breath as your primary object, you can keep on observing in-breath to out-breath, out-breath to in-breath, number of cycles or number of seconds or number of minutes. That indicates that your mind is face to face with the object. And then more and more you familiarize the object, the way you verify the same, the way it manifests is your certainty towards the object, or lack of bewilderment. When the in-breath happens, exactly you know this is in-breath, this is not out-breath, this is not the thought, this is not the sound, this is not a pain. Immediately the object changes into the in-breath, and when and where the in-breath happens, you know verily this is not out-breath, this is not a sound, not a thought, not a pain. Like the clarity of the object and predictability. Now I have kind of a confidence. I can keep on observing the primary object, and I won't get even mixed up between 2 lobes of the same object. That clarity is the manifestation of the mindfulness. So not only that you are reporting that I can keep the in-breath and out-breath face to face, you can go further and say, when the in-breath happens, I know it is in-breath, I can note it, it has this kind of a natural characteristic. It is not common with out-breath. And it is not common to sound, pain, thoughts, and that is therefore I am sure my mind is not in hallucination, not in imagination, it is face to face with the in-breath, because I can see the intrinsic characteristics. I can see the personal natural characteristic of that particular part, and immediately without your consent it changed into the out-breath. And mindfulness is so swift is so efficient. Immediately when and where the out-breath happens, it don't hesitate, it don't make complaint, immediately establish on the out-breath and understand its natural characteristic discreetly, delimitedly away from the in-breath. So this is the way you understand the sharpness of the mindfulness. And there, it says, in order to make this matter clear, in order to communicate this with your teacher, what you have to do is fix the perception. When the in-breath happens, don't look at from the same way, try to see the difference between the in-breath and out-breath, and there try to get the perception of the in-breath completely as if different from the out-breath. So you have to give more and more attention to grasp, to taste, to suck all the sap, all the information of the in-breath. For that you have to note it, label it, and try to see as much as possible natural characteristic in terms of shapes and the manners. So much so, whenever it is go to the out-breath, you can clearly say, these are the characteristics of the in-breath in terms of the shapes and the manners, and these are the characteristics of the out-breath with respect to the shapes and the manners. So therefore your clarity is increasing. If you have such a lucid association with the in-breath and out-breath, of course it is helping you to remember it in the latter time in such a lucidity with detailed manner. So therefore, when and where, even as a beginner, when and where you are paying attention to your primary object, you are not looking at it in a superficial way. When and where time permits, you absorb, you suck, you accumulate as much as information. So therefore these two has to work hand in hand on theoretical ground. If you are just observe the in-breath in a distance way, superficial way, in a wobbling way, just like out-breath, and you may report, I can observe in-breath and out-breath for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, then the teacher may ask, do you observe in-breath and out-breath in a discrete way or in a delimited way? Then if you have not employed that kind of a knowledge, you can't give a straightforward answer. You may say, I was with the breath, but I am not sure whether I discretely or discriminately see the two lobes separately. Then usually in the interviews or in the discussions it says, don't let it happen like that. Next time, see in-breath with its own intrinsic characteristic, personal characteristic, so that it is different from the out-breath. So that kind of clarity you have to at the beginning employ. At the beginning you have to advert. At the beginning you have to impose, and then the sharpness of the mind, the capacity of the mindfulness is increasing. And what happens is, even though it is not related to the topic we are discussing, when you are observing so closely, so immediately, so in detail, the distance between the observing mind and the observed object reduces. If you have to look at it in a very superficial way, in a wobbling way, your distance is far away, you are looking the object in the at distance. But if you try to increase the dramatic nature of your observation, the detailed capacity of your observation, the discrete nature of the observation, you have to peep, you have to close, you have to immediate with the object, then only you can have a very clear picture. And not only that, you yourself develop such a vivid, lucid picture, but your report to another person also will increase in its pragmatic nature, the crispy nature, the detailed nature. That indicates you are really on the task, you are really being on the board. Otherwise, you make a report, you are mindful on the breath, but you are unable to give detail. This is very carefully you have to proceed there, because when and where your attention is on samatha meditation, concentration based or calmness based, mind is not penetrating, so therefore it fails to report details. If you are such a person, and if the teacher is going to press you, no, you have to look into, you have to report in, you will definitely get discouraged, because that is your upbringing or your potential capacity. Your personality is more toward the serenity, more toward the concentration. So verily you are with the breath, but you don't know where it is touching. You don't know what's the difference between the in-breath and out-breath. So therefore still you are mindful, still the primary object is the in-breath and out-breath, but this is just enough to start with. One day, once the concentration develops, he or she has to understand where the touching point, what are the difference between the in-breath lobe and the out-breath lobe. So therefore, this is theoretical, you have to understand, but meanwhile you have to be patient. If the mind is not sharp enough, don't regiment it. Don't overburden with the theoretical understanding, but you have to understand the breath has three facets. One is enough, but if you wish to be a specialist, very sharp, very lucid, see the discrimination between the in-breath and out-breath and the touching point, and that is the one usually help increase your memory. Because your absorption of the capacity details are very high, so your resolution is very high, so when you are remembering it, you can remember very clearly. So therefore, even in the commentatory level, they have recognized this memory, and in order to increase it, if you are appreciating it, in order to increase it, what you have to do is, when and where the object arises, don't just have a superficial observation. At the beginning it's okay, but when and where the object is face to face with, keep on observing in detail. And that is the way your mind become more, mind invite you for the wisdom, mind become more and more insight type, and mind try to see things as they are, just not on the superficial way. It is try to penetrate into. So this is how you are using, but don't rush, don't regiment yourself, but use this information when and where time permits. And the last aspect in the commentarial exegesis is to understand what is the proximate factor for the unmindful mind to become mindful. It says mindfulness depends not on any other thing, it depends its own early mistakes. When you start ever utter, it's a mistake. Because mind never happy to be here and now. It's always jumping from the here and now. But you in an incessant way apply again and again. That your very early mistakes is the only footage, only proximate factor for the mindfulness to arise. So therefore that itself is going to give another shade of meaning about how you remember the past, what you did and what you said. That means you clearly remember all the mistakes, but you never unhappy. You understand mistakes as my teacher. That is the point you become a yogi. Till that you are desperate, you are self-cursing and you are finding fault with and everything. The moment you understand, others' mindfulness never helps me, my theoretical knowledge never helps, my teacher's grace never helps, I have to invest, but at the beginning it is always utter wastage. It's a mistake. But upon that mistake only, you clearly develop the sound foundation. So therefore, nothing in meditation endeavor considered as a mistake. Everything is some value. So therefore, whenever mention about or talk about or discuss proximate factor for the mindfulness, it says Kayadi Satasatipatthana Padattana. your early endeavor to understand, to be mindful with your bodily activities is the foundation for the higher mindfulness. The mistakes of the early mindfulness is the foundation for the higher mindfulness. So therefore, when and where you understand the territory, the definition of the mindfulness, you become happy about your early investments, even though at that time you was underestimating, you are discouraged, and therefore it is a very tricky subject to teach. Everyone expects a short method or tablet or a operation or injection. Quickly they can inject into their stream and try to be mindful. There is no such thing. If it is so, the Buddha would have given such an injection to his own son, Rahula. But Rahula, he took 15 years from the ordination to the enlightenment. The Buddha used to go evening and the morning, give sermons, one after the other. But even then, that he has to accumulate his own mistakes. Upon that only mindfulness is going to take root. So therefore, when and where you are to be ready for the mindfulness, you have to understand with the normal sense, in the normal judgmental way, in the normal result-oriented way, your effort is in utter failure. You have to give it up and to be religious. You have to be the spiritual grounds and do it for the sake of doing. Don't expect any kind of results, but when it is happening, going on, imagine that you have done a lot of mistakes, and one day again, after a lot of mistakes, we will say that you earn some kind of a ground in the mindfulness, and with so much of confidence you sit, but it becomes utter failure. You can't come the face to face with the primary object. You can't keep the posture. A lot of disturbance and everything, and then you feel so scattered and you critical and self-critical, and without giving up, if you keep on practicing, definitely you can remember in your early part of your practice as a beginner, you have gone through this kind of thing, and what did I do with my own attitude, my own knowledge, my own method, ways and means to overcome that. And at that time you can understand, you can remember your mistake as well as the ways and means you yourself applied and you went through. And there Buddha is not coming to you, teacher is not coming to you, book is not going to come to you, your own past mistakes and your own ways and means are the one going to help. So therefore at that time you are not very happy with what you have done and what you have taught. They are not very efficient tactics, but they are the only tools you have. So therefore you reinvest them, and this time you are doing, after this kind of recollection, you do with a hilarious feeling or the happy mood, so it is working very efficiently than in the first place. So that is how, when and where difficulty happen, rather praying or rather expecting the grace of the teacher or asking Buddha to come and help, you consult your own knowledge. And in consultancy, if you are rejecting your own past mistakes, you are in failure, utter failure. But to understand your own past mistakes are the thing, therefore don't throw away. Let them be in the dustbin, but don't throw away. And ultimately you may be reusing it. Sometimes it works as a blink. All of a sudden, when you are at the utter desperate moment, a blink happens and the way out is there. The blink is defined power of thinking without thinking. It's a power of mental game, but all of a sudden answer comes without thinking, an accidental way. So this is how almost all the scientific discoveries happen. Never by thinking, but all of a sudden it happens. It's a power of thinking, of course, but happening without thinking. because you have done so much of mistakes. So therefore, in the science also, it's well appreciated aspect. They never give up. Keep on practicing. While practicing, your own past mistakes helps. The difference between in the scientific endeavor and this spiritual one is it is discovering, experimenting external factors. Here, discovering and experimenting with the internal factors. So therefore, this is called insight or insight meditation. So you must have enough tools. You must have enough ways and means. You must have, that means, enough mistakes. So therefore, it is accepted fact, earlier the better. Don't wait till you become too old, you become too sick, too close in the death. Then you have very little chance, because even you start, all the mistakes go into the negative rather than positive. But if you started in the very young age, and I think in Sri Lanka there is a saying, even if you are going to be a mechanic, do it in your younger age. And once if you are a very old age, if your boss is going to slap you, you will kill him. But if you are a younger person, even your boss is going to blame or kick you, you can tolerate because you are young age. So any skill, if you start in a younger age, you develop so much of ways and means. But the main mistake in our value system is we throw them away. We think they are wastage of time or as a bad omen. But in the mindfulness game, never to throw it. Everything needs to be used, reused. So otherwise, without that kind of an attitude, you never cut through your cheating nature, your perverted nature, your camouflage. You usually take whatever the mind going to say into grant, without questioning, without analyzing it, thinking the mind is for your benefit or for your well-being. But when you give a serious thought and when you are scrutinized, you find you are just a slave of your mind. It is only on the sensuous pleasure, never on your well-being. So how to use that kind of a misdirected mind in a way that it is a little bit compromising, little bit of sense pleasure also, but taken into your well-being. So if I am to quote the things that I mentioned yesterday and tomorrow, when and where you pay attention or focus your attention to an object, you have to understand, mind just see the tip of the iceberg and come and say, yes, I see, I heard, I tasted, I smell, I touch, and this is what it is. Nothing to be challenged. But if you know, tip of the iceberg explain only 1/10 of the whole picture, and majority is not visible. They are not very obvious. But the tip is floating because of the upward movement of the main chunk, that it is not it is always behind the screen. So if you know at the first glance, at the outset, you only see the tip of the iceberg, you are not to challenge it, you are not to reject it, but to see it again and again, and then only then, if you have enough theoretical understanding and the preparedness only, you can understand the total iceberg is not being represented by the tip only, but the tip is the one you can see the shape, color, all the kind of thing. And therefore, if you keep on observing, just the tip, what is already obvious and conspicuous, the Buddha is assuring you the tip is the superficial observation, that's the wobbling part. But if you know the majority is hiding, majority is behind the screen, repetitively application, you can see this tip itself is not permanent, it is itself is not beneficial for you, it is changing. So you are just observing as if the changes, chronological changes of the tip, the superficial part. And when you are observing, if you know, always the iceberg is maintaining a balance, 1/10 is up, 9 part of the 10 is below. Whatever the tip changes, it keeps the proportion. And more observation only, you understand this character of the ice. When the ice is forming, its volume increases. All the other matters, when the cooling happens, volume reduces. And due to this crazy nature, due to this unnatural nature, ice is floating. Otherwise, ice is also another shape of water. But other things, when it is condensing, reduces the volume, but ice from 0 to -4, it is enlarging. That is why this tip of the iceberg. So if you wish to understand this nature of the ice, by just looking at the ice tip of the ice, you can't do it. You have to know the theory and look at it. When you are observing only, you will understand that there are many manifestations of the water: liquid form, vapor form, ice form, the solid, liquid, and the gas. And they have different behaviors. Now you are to see the solid form and the water form and look at again and again. Then only one day this theory you may grasp, and you can connect your observation and the theory. And in the in-breath and out-breath, what happens is, if you consider this model tip of the iceberg, the untrained mind or the beginner's mind only see the gross middle of the in-breath and the gross middle of the out-breath. And then you say, yes, now I am with the in-breath and out-breath. Okay, at that time teacher is not pressing you to see details, they familiarize it. Keep as long as possible, longer time with the in-breath and out-breath, and make sure you can keep it face to face. The day the beginner comes and says, okay, now I can keep it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, like, then see, put your mind to see from where does that in-breath comes in. From where does that out-breath comes in? It appears in such a gross form, or from subtlety it becomes gross. So at the beginning the yogi is reacting to it. He is asking me to see the in-breath and out-breath. When and where I am going to report that I can see in-breath and out-breath, still he is not happy. He is now asking me to see the beginning. And like it is appear like a challenge, appear like a punishment. But it is not a punishment, because till you come up with the familiarity of face to face with the breath, that exercise cannot be given. That exercise is waiting. So whenever you take it as not, it is not a punishment, it's a advancement. So the day you are to see the beginning of the in-breath, and you can see from the beginning to the gross area, what a quick change. It's quickly changing from the unobvious things to the very obvious thing. Unconspicuous point to the very conspicuous point. And the untouchable, very sensitive point to the rubbing, gushing, in-breath and out-breath. And when and where you take interest in, your attention more and more go to the beginning of the in-breath. If you are a person with adventurous mind, if you are a person with a risk-loving mind, if you are a person with experimenting mind, otherwise your attention naturally go to the already gross, already conspicuous tip. But now it's going regressing. You are going backward to the development, early part of the breath. This is the term meaning of Yoniso Manasikara. Yoniso Manasikara means you start with the gross area and go to work towards the beginning of it. In the criminal investigation, in the diagnosis of the disease, this is exactly where you start. If you have to start a disease, have to start with the already worsened or inflicted symptoms. And doctor can't say, no, it is too much, I can't treat like. He just treat the symptoms and say, if you come little earlier, as and when the disease started, the potential of the medicine is more beneficial than the disease is too late. So Buddha also says, if you are diligent, you can cut off defilement. If you are negligent, defilements are very virulent, inflicting. So you have to first understand a defilement. Or let me introduce, breath itself is a defilement. You will never be happy, you will never ready to accept it, but then you leave it aside. Now you take the breath, once it is very gross, inflicting suffering or gross or gushing through your nostrils. Now the Buddha says, okay, now you know. Now go to the middle. When you are going to the middle, it appears like unwanted challenge, unwanted details, but if you are lucky enough to go there, your sensitivity, your connectivity of the mindfulness, your preparedness ever increasing. That is the turning point. That is the point now you are focusing at it, not to the just mindfulness. Now you see the continuity of the mindfulness. See the sensitivity of the mindfulness. When is the threshold value, first you feel the onset of the in-breath. What is the threshold point where you just see the setting in of the out-breath. So that is really the sap of the Dhamma. That is called the juice of the Dhamma. That is called the flesh of the Dhamma. So when you go there, once you set that movement, it's ever catching. And you go to the more and more subtle area. Imagine a bell-shaped curve. You start with the middle, and now you are working towards the edge of the bell, and you are going to the beginning part. More and more you go there, what is happening is your sensitivity become very, 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 very increased. Ultimately, you get so much magnetized, sucked into, penetrate into, plunge into the object. When you are seriously observing the beginning of the in-breath and the beginning of the out-breath, there may be thundering rain outside, you can't hear. You are no more with the rain. And outside may be a lot of activities, but you don't know, because your mind is now gone, penetrated, percolated, gone in. And when it is happening, it's a kind of a momentum, it's a kind of a acceleration, kind of a developing the RPM, and ultimately you get imbibed, you get motivated just to see part that you have never seen earlier, and it is about to happen now. So next breath you'll be more prepared, more diligent. You understand, last breath I was a little delayed and negligent, now I try to be diligent. And taking that step successful, next in-breath you are more prepared, more diligent, and the diligence, the preparedness ever catching. And that ultimately go beyond your capacity, go beyond your controllability, and when you go there, you find right from the beginning to the middle, it is throughout the development, chronologically, you can understand it is so fast, so in a flux, right from the beginning to the middle of the breath, right from the beginning of the out-breath to the middle, it's quickly changing, and you can't see natural characteristics. You only can see a flux, you only can see a rub, you only can see a energy. Earlier you felt solidified coldness, warmness, longness, shortness, all the kind of thing. More and more you give thin slicing of time, detailed approach, it ultimately fit into the term of a flux, a movement, a series of action, one lead to the other, but individual episode, don't wait till you put a label. You can't take a side. You can't take any object as such because in such a flux it is happening. So then you feel nauseating, you feel vomitish, you feel rotating light, you feel uncertain, you feel lost, you feel lonely. So if you go prepared, instead think, this is not happening for each and every person, this is not happening even for me. Each and every time I meditate, very occasionally or circumstantially only, this penetration takes place. When it is happening, if you have enough energy without giving up and get up and go, that is the energy we discussed yesterday. So develop second kind of energy, that's the pertaining or sustenance kind of energy. Once the momentum is started, never give up, carry on. But the thing is your boredom, your monotony, your sleepiness, your slimy mind, your sloth and torpor, your self-criticism, uncertainty, all the things are going to play. So you have to cut through the jungle. When it is happening, your mindfulness is become steadfast, and so you have the full capacity. And that is when it is happening, that very episode, that your penetration, that your detailed analysis become very important age, very important area in your meditation. Very clearly you can understand without help of any person, only with your past experience and together with theoretical understanding, together with diligence, together with preparedness. When you are cutting through, is the experience you get easily can put into the term the contentment. You can see it is satisfactory. So you are so solitude, whatever happening in the outside world, you have no concern about, because it is going inward. So when such a thing happens, not only your attention, your concentration, your wisdom is confined to this material phenomena. Material is the movement of air. When it is happening, when the sensitivity go down, your perception, earlier you consider this as in-breath, it was discretely different from out-breath. Now when you go into the thin slicing of time, when you are nearing this flux, that perception dissolves. In-breath accumulates out-breath, and they are very subtle. Still you know you see the energy, you see the flux, and the perception is called fading of style. The feelings, that's also going to take a huge evolution, and your manipulation, sometimes you feel like taking a deep breath and to take situation under control. But now everything is autopiloting. And there is also part, whether to get involved here or let things happen, but you suffocate. When the thing happens, you feel like suffocation. The breath takes so long, in-breath is taking so long, not allowing like to out-breath. And out-breath is taking so long, you feel the thirsty for the in-breath. And your sankhara, your manipulations, is talking and thinking and giving so much of opinions. Should I take a in-breath or should I just wait? So everything becoming questionable, becoming something novelty. So letting go or just observe or put into autopiloting is someone has to tell you. Otherwise your ego or your conceit or your desire or your lack of understanding always make problems and entertaining doubts, and you feel uncertain. You feel the thing is not under control, right? But meditation is perfectly developing. Mindfulness gains ground so thoroughly that our rational mind put all the possible opinions, all the possible hindrances, and try to be smart. So they are how to let go or how to put autopiloting, and no one is skillful. Everyone, as much as you are employing your past knowledge, your theoretical knowledge, your deductive knowledge, so much so you are putting impediments. And this all become your experience. You know there is no second person to disturb you. That your utter idiotness, foolishness, ignorance, darkness is the one. In order to protect your life, in order to protect your body, you feel I have to do something like that. So this is what we call kilesas. This is what we call defilement. You never let go. So in let goism, we call that to become generous, to give food and water, lodgings and kind of thing. It's also generous, and that's what we call dana. But now, what you are going to give up is your likings and dislikings. Now you are giving up is your personality traits. Now you are giving up is your hobbies. Now you are giving up is your addiction. Now you are giving up is your karmic conditioning. So it is definitely against the grain. And if you wish to be a yogi, you have to understand how much things you must endow with. You must have theoretical understanding ready. And you must be prepared for this kind of thing. And you must have gone almost near and failed yesterday. And that is only one today you are going to give a real understanding. So therefore, when it is happening, that is the real term meaning of the adventure. Because you are learning the crux of your entity, yourself. And when it happens, mindfulness is gaining such a ground, and it not only grow in the depth, it has to grow with the breadth. Whenever you go in the walking meditation, this kind of a depth you can't expect, but the breadth can happen. Whenever you are doing something intentionally, legs are moving, eyes are open, wind movements are more, sounds are more, and together with how can you keep the track with the soul touching the earth, starting from the heel, going through the toes, and when the toe of the left leg is thirsting or thrust against the ground, slowly right leg is going to assume the pressure from the heel. So when these things are happening, unless otherwise you don't believe your past mistakes or you are going to use your own experience, it appears like impossible. But in walking meditation, even though it is not very deep, the breath going to take place, there is a connection between your confidence, your preparedness in the walking meditation has some kind of a bearing upon the walking meditation. And the walking meditation you develop the breath with lot of variables, but still mindfulness. And when you go from walking meditation to wash your dishes or wash your clothes or face, brush your teeth, and there everything is intentional. You have to do with the time frame, and there it is tension arises. Under such circumstances, you can't develop mindfulness, you can't protect mindfulness because nothing there. But only the thing is, you know in the sitting meditation, when the situation is fairly under control, I can. But in the walking meditation, situation is so variables are much, but still I can. But here, I am doing a meaningful task, and while doing, I can't think about the depth, but I can think about the breadth. A thin blanket of mindfulness while doing this kind of a day-to-day activities. Ultimately you find the relationship. If the day-to-day activities, if you can have that kind of a thing, mindfulness, that is really help for you to go and get the depth in the sitting. They are at the beginning appear like contradictory, but more and more it is going ultimately become complementary. Day-to-day activities in turn return back to the successful sitting, and successful sitting in turn help in the day-to-day activities. Walking meditation makes the pacemaker, and when it's going there, whatever you did, whatever you heard, may be on the mistake side or may be from the instructions wise, all of a sudden appear like a blink. All of them appear like a kiss. You know, oh, this is the what I have to do under such circumstances. Like immediately you apply that method, results are there. No time gap. So this is how your independence or self-sufficiency or contentment is going to happen. So therefore this is not mere beginning of the mindfulness. This is the way you develop the mastery, the seasoning, and work with other unruly variables. When it is happening, once you gain the ground, earlier you would have thought impossible, but once you gain the ground, you will understand that is the adventure we have forgotten, foregone, due to this mere sensuous pleasure. And now you can't do away with the sense pleasure because it is a must for your keeping of your life. And therefore you compromise how much time I am to use for the protection of the mindfulness and how much time for the sake of sense pleasure. So this is the place it is. When and where you have that kind of a rationalization, SMS. When and where you wish to have the continuity, do the task little slower than the normal speed, so that you will be self-aware. And make a determination while it is doing in the day-to-day activities, as well I will be mindful. And silently. That means listening to your own sounds. Whatever the task you are doing, when it is doing, just listen the rubbing sensation and the rattling noise, what is happening, and don't try to reduce the noise. That is not involved, but listening. So slowly, mindfully, silently, your self-awareness slowly increasing. And when it is happening, you may find some of the very tedious tasks, very challenging tasks, very emotional part you have to leave aside. But day by day your territory is increasing, little by little. So the Buddha used to say, when you go forward or backward, when you are stretching your arms and bending your arm, when you are looking forward, when you are looking sideways, when you are wearing robes, when you are taking the meal, when you are going to the toilet, when you are talking, when you are silent, each and every stage you try to employ little by little this mindfulness. That's called paramena sati nepakkena samannāti. The nepakka that is called skillfulness you develop in this very life. Some people are born with merits, born with skillfulness and the knowledge, that is medhavi panya. This is nepakka panya or nipakka panya that is happening within this life. So simply you can say your mistakes. So what you have done the mistakes and you know how to reuse it, and therefore each and every mistake ultimately appear like a teacher. Each and every disappointment appear like a blessing in disguise, and that is how you recycle, or I would say how to make compost out of thrown away material. In household affairs, so much of thing you have to throw away. From the kitchen, from the garden and everything. And if you recycle, well, if you expose to the sun, all the pathogenic germs, bacteria will kill, and the saprophytic will be remain, and it will be decomposed, and you will come out with the best balanced manure in the world. Instead, if you are going to keep all the dirt in a dark place and covered, it will be developed with fungus and the gas, bad gas, poisonous gas, and your whole household will be ruined and infested. So likewise, all the mistake, if you hide to say that I am a bad person, that I did this bad and that means that you are hiding your mistake in the dark place and allowing the moss and the fungus to grow, and ultimately poisonous gas. Instead, expose yourself. I am a person, I have done this much of thing, and it is not to harm others, but it is at the beginning appear like a the beginner, immature person, and whenever discussion, when you are presenting your what is happening, ultimately it is going to give a most balanced nutriment of manure for the growth. So therefore the Buddha gave the full-fledged capacity to human being without a superhuman being. Your liberation, your understanding, your facing to the life, no second person involved. Even he himself washed his hand, told, I am not responsible, I can't. Only my responsibility is to tell you the formula, the teaching, and once it is going there, do away as much as possible with the Buddha. Do away as much as possible with the Dhamma. Do away as much as possible with the Sangha. And you have to learn the art, and therefore when and where you become fully enlightened, the Buddha given the degree for you to is asaddha. Saddha means faith. That once you fully enlightened, you are no more faithful. Asaddha. Akatanyu. You don't forget, you don't care about others, you only care your experience and the mistakes, and therefore you become enlightened, you become independent, you become contented. So at the beginning you have to have enormous saddha, enormous thanks given to the Buddha, enormous thank you to the Dhamma, Sangha. But when and where you become independent, when and where you trust upon your mindfulness and the radical reflection, ultimately Buddha says, you are also becoming a Buddha. Whatever you will become doing is Dhamma. You are Sangha. And you are in the full moral state. So therefore, that independent but unlucky enough, the born Buddhist or traditional Buddhist, they are so frightened to say goodbye to Buddha, or say to goodbye to Dhamma, or to goodbye to Sangha. They think from A to Z their dependability on the Buddha must be there. But the Buddha is not such a person to interpret terms and conditions of other person. But at the beginning he said, take the faith on the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. But if you ever depending upon that, that means you are ever a slave. You are ever not mastering the subject when and where they are. So, as I mentioned, even the breath come under the truth of suffering. Even the mindfulness come under the truth of suffering. So the day you develop mindfulness up to the maximum, you will give the equal weight to the mindfulness state of mind as well as the unmindful state of the mind. Equal mind. That means when and where you come to know, when I am performing that task, I was not mindful, you are not regretting, you know, good, now I know when and where I am mindful, when and where I am not mindful. And if you are put into a formula, ask you, when you are mindful and you know mindfulness, is one state. Other state, you are not mindful, you know you are not mindful. Which one is more skillful? More skillfully that you know you are not mindful. That is the highest protection. So therefore at the beginning you try to be 100% mindful, 24 hours, 7 days per week, and 30 days per month, and 365 days for the year, and ultimately you are disqualified. Yes, you are utterly disqualified. That is not the meaning. When and where you are mindful, you know verily I am mindful. If you are not mindful, you know verily, and you try both of them the same. That is what you call you are fully enlightened, fully arahant. Under such circumstances, Buddha says, oh darling, I will tell you one thing. You have to give up even this Dhamma. Forget about Adhamma. Don't worry about the Adhamma. So therefore don't hold it to Dhamma. It has only utility value. By learning all the Tripitaka, by remembering everything, and judging others and everything, that is not the way to get the liberation from Dhamma. So therefore more and more you develop mindfulness up to the steadfastness, continuity, that does not indicate from the morning to evening you are mindful. But you know this area, I was mindful, I can remember clearly this is I did intentionally or not. And other part I was not, but I clearly know that was I don't know. So you accept it. And there you don't know whether you did it with the intention or not. But there you have to surrender. You have to listen to the others. You are a slave. And if you know this area I did it, and whether it is intentionally or unintentionally, then the other sayings, you have your own yardstick to measure and say, no, even though you say that I did it, it is something happened to me, I am ready to apologize, I am going to pardon. And this is what it is. So ultimately your accountability, your responsibility, very clearly you can make a statement. If it is not so clearly, you say, I don't know. It is not a mistake. So this is the way we get escape from the prison of a rational mind, the prison of the deductive knowledge. For that you have to have something under your very nose and confidence, the breadth and the width of the mindfulness. When it is happening, you may understand how much worries you are taking for uncommitted mistakes. Something happened to you but without any intention, but whenever someone is accusing, you are brooding. You are so emotional and you don't know whether you are responsible or not. But the Buddha says, if you are ignorant of that, you are succumb to that kind of infliction. But you have your accountability to say, yes, you can say it is I have done, but I am directly telling clearly, I have not done. It is not my intention. But if I have done any mistake, please forgive. If you are going to punish me, I am ready, but I am very clear. It is something happened to me, not what I have done. So there is, you are suffering, you are undergoing the punishment, but no emotion. You know it is due. This is the way you have to deal with the emotions. That is why you have to say, the emotion, that bloody thing, can't live without your consciousness. But your consciousness can live without emotions. That is what the definition of mindfulness. So more and more you go there, you find each and everyone is trying to put emotions into your dustbin. You say, oh yes, I have a big one, you put it. Who cares? And you will find the caption, main thing is not to worry. Let the thing happen. Your main thing is not to worry. That means your main thing is to be mindful and accountable to what is happening. That does not indicate the whole world go to the purity or benevolence or Samaritan world. No. When the good thing happens, you know good. When the bad thing happens, you know bad. That accountability is the only thing we can do. And when that kind of a judgment, when kind of a mind is developing, your attachment or your inflicting nature of the defilement reduces, as if that their vicious nature reduces, and more your mastery, more and more your seasoning increases, and there you feel that those who are no virtues, no faith, no mindfulness, they are like a slice of bread wet. If you keep it outside, all the germs will come and plant upon them. But your slice is toasted, so therefore even if you keep out, germs will not come and plant. Both of them are bread. Your thing is toasted. That is toasted is called tapas. Tapas means ardent energy. You also keep outside. The other will come and say, don't keep it because that bread is going to get moss and yes, that is the case. You keep it and see. That is what you have to, but the thing is, before the germ comes, it must be dry. This is what we do. So therefore, more and more you practice the different shades of meaning of the mindfulness and definitions ever increasing. So therefore, don't just retain with the mere term of mindfulness or awareness or diligence. Let it grow ever. More and more you practice, your definition of mindfulness is ever growing. Therefore, your meditative life is a kind of a lifelong experiment, but books, theories are going to frame them and going to say mindfulness means this, concentration means that, wisdom means that. That is the way they put into cages, so much so they are second hand. But as far as the mindfulness goes, it's a lifelong experiment. Ever you are changing exactly the way all the other labels, all the other things you do, it's always have the capacity to refine it. So keep it open. More and more you open, mindfulness will take your complete responsibility. And in the Jnanaponika's book, he says, under any circumstances, keep the mindfulness is forefront, and it will take the complete responsibility till that confidence happens. You find many methods and ways, but the moment you understand the mindfulness is a very faithful friend and already have the capacity to take anything under control, starting from the light thing to middle and to the gross thing, and you give the chance, and slowly you will understand your immunity and your bearing capacity is increasing. That is how your past memories, your past experience or your past mistakes, how going to fertilize the more challenges yet to happen in the life. Ultimately they become just not a distraction or not a punishment, but blessings in disguise. So therefore, let your all the efforts so far invested on mindfulness take care about the health, and with that learn the art of main thing is not work. With that remark, I would like to sum up today's talk. Thank you very much for listening. Okay, we will take a little time to share merits with all the seen and unseen beings. So we are going to recite with that idea the Pali stanzas. Those who know may follow, others may listen attentively. Ittavata changammehi sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavata changammehi sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ittavata changammehi sambhatang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu sasanang. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanang. Akasattha ca bummattha devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu mang parang. Idang ho jnatinang hotu sukhita hontu jnatayo. Idang ho jnatinang hotu sukhita hontu jnatayo. Idang ho jnatinang hotu sukhita jnatayo. Imina punya kammena mahami bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu pattiya. Imina punya kammena mahami bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammena mami bala samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Sadhu sadhu sadhu.